Hello and welcome to Post to Post, the channel where we discuss all things hockey and all teams. I did a video where I ranked my top 15 favorite players in the National Hockey League. We're going to take that a little further and we're going to tell our favorite player from each team, but we're going to do it by division. So the Atlantic will have their own division, or the Atlantic will have their own video, which is this one. The Pacific will have its own video, the Metropolitan, so on. So, my dad's also joined in for this little event here. He's filmed his own little clip of his favorite players off each team. So we're going to do Buffalo, Detroit, Florida, Toronto, Boston, Ottawa, and Montreal, and since this is the Atlantic. So I'm going to ask you what your favorite player is from each of these teams. And I'll start with Buffalo. Who's your favorite player from Buffalo?
This one was a little bit of a toss-up because Buffalo does have, a lot of up-and-coming talent. But for me, I'm instantly going to go with Eichel.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I wanted to go with O'Reilly. I did. But I look at it from the perspective of, Eichel's got a lot more years in the tank, and he's really shown some flashes of brilliance. The only issue with Eichel is I think he has a little bit of an ego/attitude problem.
Yeah, he definitely has an attitude problem.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of Kane a little bit, Evander Kane in that department. Now, if that were in check more, then it would have been hands down Eichel. But I was really tossing up between Eichel and O'Reilly, but ultimately I would go with Eichel.
Yeah, I was in the same situation, and I actually chose O'Reilly. I almost chose Eichel, but for the attitude problem, I chose O'Reilly. O'Reilly's a funny guy, too. If you've ever watched any interviews off the ice, he's a funny guy. So.
Pure Canadian, that's how.
Exactly. All right, and now you can check out what my dad has to say.
My favorite players from the Atlantic Division over the last year starts with Ryan O'Reilly of the Buffalo Sabres. 26 years old, 6'1" center. He put up some good numbers for Buffalo, a team that really struggled all year long. So I think although he's not the youngest guy, he's got a very promising future in the league, and maybe even with Buffalo in the long term.
All right, let's move on to Detroit. Who's your favorite player on Detroit?
Justin Abdelkader.
Really? Oh, I hate Justin Abdelkader. I shouldn't say that. I don't hate him. I don't know. He's a really nice guy off the ice from all the interviews I've seen and stuff, but he plays a bit of a pest on the ice.
And that's why I like him. Every team needs one of those guys.
Completely agree.
They really need one of those guys. And for me, he just really sticks out on Detroit. So
that's no problem. I respect that. Mine is Thomas Tatar, however you want to say it.
Tatar, yeah.
He just puts up consistent. He's young, but he still puts up consistent numbers every season. He's not a big guy, and I appreciate what he has to offer.
Detroit, I really, really like Anthony Mantha. I've been watching him ever since he was in the draft back in 2013. He went in the first round. He went, I think, around 20th. Montreal didn't pick until later on in that draft. I'm a big Montreal fan, obviously. And I was hoping, sentimental-wise, that Anthony Mantha might become a Montreal Canadian. Didn't work out that way, but I've been watching him in Detroit, and I think he's rounding out to be a very good player.
All right, moving on to Florida. Who's your favorite player on Florida?
This one was a bit of a toss-up.
This was the hardest one for me.
This was actually, no, it wasn't the hardest one for me, but this one was quite a toss-up. And this one, I think, is going to shock you. I'm going with Luongo.
Roberto Luongo? Really?
Yep.
He's probably one of the funniest guys in the NHL.
Do you follow him on Twitter?
Yeah, his Twitter.
Oh my God,
he's the best.
You can stay entertained for days just going through his Twitter feed.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
He's awesome.
I think he's a great, chemistry guy. He's a great team guy. Is he the best goalie in the world? No, but I'm a fan of him just based on his personality alone.
Yeah, Luongo's great.
And what he brings to his team.
Yeah, I'm okay with that, but yeah. Mine's Aaron Ekblad. If you've watched my video from the previous top 15 favorite players, Aaron Ekblad is my favorite player. Although, when I was making that list originally, I almost put Yager in there in my top 15. He came just outside the bubble. And so my second favorite player would be Yager on Florida. How can you not like Yager?
Well, I'm glad you took Ekblad. I mean, I said in a previous video that within several years, Ekblad will probably be the best defenseman in the league.
Yeah.
That's how good he will be,
Absolutely.
In my opinion.
He's awesome.
Florida Panthers, you have to give it to Jaromir Jagr. The guy's a beast. He's 45 years old. I hope he comes back to play in the next year, maybe 2 more years. He put up some good numbers. He mentored the younger players in the dressing room. He was rock steady on the ice. and just a great all-around celebration of hockey when he plays. I just think it's great to watch him. Lots of talent on Florida. They'll do well in the future, but I think my favorite guy right now has to be Jagr.
All right, Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay. Now, this one was the hardest for me, to be honest, because, they have some great forwards. We got Johnson and so on. But ultimately, I went with Hedman.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
so did
because
I.
to me, he's one of the best defensemen in the league right now. And to me, he's almost kind of underappreciated. I find that they just don't talk about the guy enough. And some of the plays he makes in the defensive zone is just pure brilliance.
Yeah.
And I really think he deserves a lot more credit.
I completely agree. I think he deserves more credit as well. And Tampa Bay is a funny team for me because I don't like Tampa Bay as a team, probably because they're so good all the time and they're always beating the Montreal Canadiens. But I like a lot of players on the Tampa Bay Lightning. I like Braden Point. I like, actually I like Callahan. I know a lot of people don't, but I like Callahan. I like Tyler Johnson. The list goes on. I like a ton of people off Tampa, but I just don't like Tampa. But anyways.
Tampa Bay Lightning. I like Braden Point. He played well for them. He also played well in the IIHF championships after the, of course, the teams that didn't make the playoffs or got knocked out early, they were able to send some players from those teams were able to go over to Europe and play in the IIHF, and I was impressed with his play over there as well.
All right, moving on to Toronto.
Now, this one is just hands down Austin Matthews.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's absolutely no argument here. I mean, look what he did this year, putting up 40 goals as a rookie. I mean, you're an elite company. If you come in as a rookie and put up 40 goals, Sidney Crosby didn't even put up 40 goals in his rookie season. He had 39. Check it out. You'd be silly, I think, not to take Matthews as the top guy in Toronto.
I guess I'm silly. I chose.
Well, it comes down to your favorite, so it's all your own personal choice. I get it. But
I chose Mitch Marner.
Well, that's not a bad choice either.
For a lot of the same reasons. They both have great stories. Austin Matthews comes from a state that isn't really typical hockey. He's from Arizona.
Yep.
And Mitch Marner has kind of the same, not the same background, but he's got a good story leading up as well. So they both have good stories. But I like Mitch Marner's play better. He's a little smaller. He has to work a little harder to get things that he needs to get done, like goals and assists, and he has to avoid checks. And it's harder for a smaller guy to play. So. Yep. I gave the nod to Mitch Marner there.
Well, what really won me over was Austin Matthews' play in the first round of the playoffs.
Oh, yeah.
That's what really won me over, and I instantly became a fan. I said, this kid has it. He has the heart, the determination, and the skill.
Absolutely.
Toronto. Wow, where do you start? Neil and I were up to a game in Toronto earlier this year. We saw all the players. We saw Matthews. We saw Marner. We saw Nylander. Just some fabulous young talent in Toronto. I guess if you have to pick one, you have to pick Austin Matthews. Quite an amazing player.
All right, Boston's up next.
Do we have to do Boston?
We have to do Boston, yeah.
Well, this one was a toss-up between Marchand and Bergeron. Now, Marchand is an unbelievable hockey player if he could just cut out the crap. Okay, if he just takes that out of his game, he has an amazing skill set. I mean, look at the goals he put up this year.
Oh, yeah.
He's an amazing small player. But ultimately, I went with Bergeron because to me, he is the best two-way guy in the league.
Yeah, he definitely is. I almost went with Bergeron. Class act. His teammates love him. Yep. But I did go with Torrey Krug as my favorite. I don't know what it is about Torrey Krug. I really like him. I think he's very underrated. He had a great season this last season. He's small, but he plays physical. I just like him.
Nope, that's a good one.
The Boston Bruins. Do I really have to pick somebody from Boston? I find it hard to do that. First off, I always try to watch what McQuaid is up to because McQuaid is from Prince Edward Island. His father and I used to work in the same office building, as a matter of fact, although I never met him. But I always watch Islander players, New Brunswick players, Nova Scotia players, and for that reason, I've always kept an eye on Adam McQuaid. His penalty minutes are higher than I would want on my team, and he's not been able to play a lot just because of injuries. So, hopefully he'll become more resilient as time goes on. But I think if I have to pick a favorite player from Boston, it has to be Patrice Bergeron. Consistently puts up impressive numbers. He plays fairly clean on a team that doesn't really play clean. So he's not really into that bruising culture that they have. And I just like him as a person. I think he's a good representative of the game of hockey.
All right, moving on to Ottawa.
Dion Phaneuf.
Dion Phaneuf?
No, I'm kidding.
I say you used to hate Dion Phaneuf, but I know you've kind of liked him over the past year, or maybe just the past couple months from the playoffs. I know you've said some positive things about DL.
Yeah, I did. He actually looked very, very good in the series against Pittsburgh, and he actually upped his physical play, which made him so popular in Calgary. You know, he laid some really big hits in that series. So no, Phaneuf had a really good playoff, in my opinion. But for me, I'm going with Pajot.
Oh, yeah. It's hard not to like Pajot.
I'm going with Pajot.
He's a really nice guy.
Yeah, he seems like a really comical guy on and off the ice, but after his performance with Ottawa in their playoff run all the way to the Eastern Conference Final, I became a fan of Pajot, and I really like what he brings to the ice.
I don't disagree. I like Pajot too. Mine is Derek Brassard. I was a big fan of him when he played for the Rangers.
Yep.
He constantly and consistently puts up great numbers. Yeah, I think he's very underrated, and I think he deserves more credit.
It's a lot to pick from in Ottawa. I saw a lot more of the Ottawa Senators this year than I was predicting I would see because they went so deep into the playoffs. I like Mark Stone. I think he's got the right attitude. He plays hard without being over the edge. He's the kind of guy that he has that rock steady persona about him that I would trust him on the ice with a minute to go and the other team is the goalie pulled. I'd want Mark Stone out there. I think he's a solid player. So of all the Ottawa Senators, and there's lots of good ones, I like him the best.
All right, moving on to your favorite team, the Montreal Canadiens. Who's your favorite player?
Gallagher. Hands down.
Yeah, I think a lot of people's favorite player from Montreal is Gallagher, just because he's always laughing and smiling on the ice.
Yeah, he's an agitator.
Yeah.
He can be a goal scorer, but for me, it's his net presence. He kind of reminds me of what was his name? I believe it was Thomas Holmstrom for Detroit. A few years back. He had just amazing net presence, and that's what Gallagher has. I mean, how many goals, cheap goals, has Gallagher scored just over the last few seasons? I mean, it's incredible. You need a guy like that. And to me, he should be the captain of that franchise.
Oh, that's bold.
Yep.
That's bold.
Sorry, Pacioretty.
That's okay. Some people will probably agree with you, myself included. I don't think Pacioretty should be the captain, but that's a video for another time. All right, if you've watched my top 15 favorite players, you will know that Shea Weber is my favorite Montreal Canadiens player. I love what he brings to the team. He's calm. He's a leader. He's got that big shot from the point. He plays physical. He's great defensively. He checks all the boxes for me. That's why I like Shea Weber.
Oh, that's a good pick. No Carey Price, though.
No Carey Price.
From either of us. Ooh.
No.
And finally, Montreal. I'm a huge Montreal Canadiens fan. Have been all of my conscious life that I can remember. I think this past year, my favorite player was Alexander Radulov. He came to every game just dying to get on the ice, dying to jump over the boards and play hard. Other people have commented on this, that he seemed to be the most happy for other players when goals were scored. He was just as excited as if he had scored the goals himself. And despite that, he still scored a lot of his own too. Just a great player, great sense of energy. He's not the youngest guy in the face of the earth. He's like 30, which by hockey standards is getting on. But I think his time away in the KHL and this general maturing did well. Now, do I think he's worth, $6, $7, $8 million a year for many, many years? I don't. I think I would want to not fall victim to the Kovalev disease, I guess. You get a player, really not a Canadian or an American player, but a Russian player who signs a big contract, and then the money's in the bank, or headed into the bank. They can take their foot off the gas a little bit. Radulov very much was in a tryout situation this year, and he tried out very, very well. If he's reasonable and wants a decent contract, I hope Montreal is able to grab onto him. But I wouldn't sell the farm to keep him, as much as I liked his play. So that's my wrap-up on the Atlantic Division, the players from all of the teams in the Atlantic Division, that if I were a general manager, would I want to have on my team for the coming year? Those are my list of such players.
All right, well, that wraps it up. You've heard from myself, you've heard from Justin, you've heard from my dad. You know all our favorite players in the Atlantic Division. Make sure you keep an eye out for future videos on all the rest of the divisions and those teams and our favorite players. I hope you like this video. If you do, hit the like button. If you're new to this channel and you like this video, hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you in the next one. Adios. I almost said this video thing.
We're making all kinds of videos.
We're making all kinds of videos. Hope you can come join us for our videos.
Oh, God. That is awesome.